You are listening to Exploring Sacred with your host, Denise Ivana Francisco, on the Temple Within Radio and Digital Media Network, giving voice to the sacred.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a beautiful brand new day, and welcome to Exploring Sacred. This is Denise King Francisco, and it's good to be here with everybody. Recently, it seems that there has been an increase, I should say, in the number of people who have said, "Hey, Dana, will you go back to the basics for a minute and just talk about things like intuition, divine guidance, angels, the things that really are the foundation of getting to know your spiritual self and your soul self and connecting with spirit in richer ways." And so we're going to begin that today in this new series of divine guidance and where does it come from. So I invite all of you to sit back and relax and perhaps invite your own divine guidance to be present with you if you've not already done so today. And just take a moment to be with your body and to give gratitude for this day. I happen to be one of those people who believes that there's something to be grateful for in every single day. And I like to try at least early in the morning and before I go to sleep at night to express my gratitude for the beauty of life and the experiences of my life. Good morning, Katie Battle. It's good to see you here in the chat room. For those of you that are wondering, is the chat room open? It is indeed open. Come on in. Katie's in here already with me, and I'm already in here with me, along with my guardian angels and my allies in spirit. And I'm hoping that you will join us too. Divine guidance. There are so many sources of divine guidance and so many perhaps definitions of divine guidance. What is that? Divine guidance, I happen to believe, is the voice of grace. It's the voice of creation. It's the voice of our soul's wisdom and the source of our soul's wisdom, which I believe is the creative force in all things, creator, our maker, God, call it what you will. But that infinite intelligence that I believe is created of light and love and therefore gave birth to each and every one of us as an expression of that very light and love. And here we are on Grandmother Earth, hopefully expressing that. Hey, Nikki Jorgensen. Happy almost birthday, Katie Battle. Happy birthday to you. Thank you, Nikki, for that reminder. Usually, at least for me, one of the best ways to receive divine guidance is by being still. It's by being quiet. But not always. Sometimes we can receive what we may call inspiration, an aha moment, a moment of clarity, while we're doing mundane tasks, folding the laundry, washing the dishes, all of those things that comes with having a human life. Sometimes we can be right in the middle of the most mundane, day-to-day thing, and all of a sudden we feel inspired, or we can feel a repetitive thought. We don't always think thoughts. I believe sometimes we feel thoughts. We have feelings that come through us. They come to us and they come through us. And sometimes those feelings are persistent. Sometimes those thoughts are persistent. Sometimes we have daydreams that are persistent. And I believe that those are the moments in time when we are being asked by our soul and by that spirit that ignites our soul into life to pay attention to the repeating thought, to the repeating feeling, to the song that keeps repeating itself on the radio, to the signs that continue to repeat themselves, trying to get our attention, Good morning, Marianne. It's good to see you in the chat room. And what do we do with those moments of divine grace where the thoughts repeat and the feelings repeat and the signs repeat? Well, some people shrug those off as mere coincidence. I learned a long time ago, at least for me, speaking for myself, there is no such thing as a coincidence. And I've learned that everything has the potential to be guiding us in any moment. Yes, of course, sometimes a cow is just a cow, and it requires discernment sometimes to understand when a cow is just a cow and when we're being given divine guidance. Sometimes the problem, I believe, isn't so much in receiving the divine guidance, it's the fear, the anxiety, the stress of perhaps what our divine guidance is telling us or having us feel. I would say that it's probably pretty common that we in our human condition really don't like a whole lot of change. Some people love change. Some people abhor change. And most of us fall somewhere in between, leaning toward not really liking a whole lot of change. And oftentimes, divine guidance, that still small voice, as they say, says to us, get ready for change. Something is changing. Something has changed. Pay attention. You've changed. You've changed. It's time for you to acknowledge the change, the growth. And for many, that can make us really uncomfortable when we have that inkling, uh-oh, I'm changing. My circumstances are changing. I'm being asked to be more of me. Boy, that's the voice of the divine that sometimes we just want to shut the door to, isn't it? When we're being asked to be more fully who we are and who we came here to be, because that means that divine guidance is saying that you have to be more authentically you if you want to get to what's next in your life. If you want to get to what's next in your spiritual growth or your understanding of things, sometimes divine guidance says you get to step right out of your comfort zone, or we're nudging you out of your comfort zone, or what the heck, we're just going to push you right out of your comfort zone, and just always remember we've got your back. Who's got your back? Well, your ancestors have your back. Your ancestors have your back. Those illumined ones that have risen to the ranks of true, pure ancestors. We all have them. They stand with us. They stand behind us, always guiding us to what next. And sometimes it's their divine guidance that says, prepare yourself. And isn't it amazing? Sometimes we can prepare ourselves. We have a course of action that we have undertaken. We complete the course of action, and then we think to ourselves, now what am I supposed to do? I did everything that I felt compelled to do or led to do or driven to do. And now what? Well, sometimes divine guidance sets us out on a course of action, a course of introspection, a course of retrospection. And we can complete that divine guidance and then think to ourselves, well, what did I do that for? Well, I happen to be one of those people that believes that when we follow our divine guidance, sometimes the results are instantaneous, and at other times we're given what I call the lull in order to integrate the course of action, education, wisdom, searching, journey, looking back, healing that we've just undertaken. We can be so busy completing all of that we expect that the rubber is supposed to meet the road in the next second. Oftentimes, Spirit says, our soul self says, Creator of all things says, hold up a minute. Hey, Nicole Werner, moo cow. That's right. Hey, Jocelyn. Nicole and I share that common word, moo cow. I'm 56, and when I see a cow, I never say, hey, there's a cow. I say, hey, there's a moo cow. We have that thing in common. Many things she and I have in common. Oftentimes, when we set about the course that our soul has led us upon, and we think, okay, we did that, now come on. We're rubbing our hands together and thinking, I know I'm supposed to do something now, or the road is supposed to reveal itself paved in gold, and nothing happens. I believe, at least in my experience, that sometimes we're called to just sit a minute, to be with it, to integrate, to bring it in, to try to understand it more fully. What is it? What is it? Well, recently, my good friend and I, David Stirk and Cad, we went down to Decatur, Georgia, right there in the suburbs of Atlanta, for an ancestral medicine workshop weekend. There was lots of information, lots of doing, very little being, lots and lots of doing. Very little time for contemplation or integration. When I was a lot younger, I would have come home probably and just, well, yeah, I would have, not a probably, and would have been off the rubber meeting the road into delving into what's next about that subject of ancestral medicine. With age, I've learned that in all of those days of doing and learning and delving into ancestry and ancestors, the burdens and the blessings that our ancestors bequeath us in our blood and bones and experiences, that rather than to come home and rush around and do something about it, I came home and for the last 2 weeks, aside from doing my work at the foundation and here at the Temple Within, I've been being with it. Not doing it, but being with it. What did that experience that my soul led me to? What does it mean to me? How has it changed me? Who am I now compared to who I was that Thursday morning that Cad and I flew out to Atlanta? My soul led me there. There were times when I quite honestly scratched my head and thought, what am I doing here? And then as the time progressed, I thought, well, I came here to meet some pretty amazing people. And Velma, if you're listening, or Carmen, or Tandika, right? Akili, if you happen to be listening. What did the experience mean to me? Divine guidance is an astounding thing. Oftentimes we feel as though divinely we are being guided toward an experience, a person, an education, a job, an avocation. And we get to that place and our human expectations are foiled. Have you ever done that before? Well, I know that I was guided here, but this isn't anything like I was expecting this to be. I've done that. What am I doing here? Do I really need to be here? Whose idea was this anyway? And I can hardly believe that I even listened to that I followed that guidance. Sometimes divine guidance takes us to a place that we are least expecting. What do I mean by that? Our humanness can expect one thing, and we can follow divine guidance only to find something that we least expected. A jewel, a gift, a treasure. And sometimes we have to look a little beyond our ego, beyond our expectation of what we thought divine guidance was leading us to. Divine guidance sometimes requires that not only do we find ourselves in a quiet place, but we quiet our own self, our lower self, that monkey mind, and go for the ride. Go for the ride. Who talks to us in divine guidance anyway? Well, I believe everything that is alive with the source of creation, and to me that's everything, has the potential to divinely guide us. That word divine means inspired from the unearthly realms or the heavenly realms, the etheric realms. But I happen to believe that all of us are from the heavenly realms and the etheric realms. And not only are we from there, but I do believe that we all have one foot in each place. Here on Grandmother Earth, and also in the home of our soul. Now, some people are a little more, comfortable here on terra firma. And maybe they let the other part of their being atrophy for whatever reason, or they're just frankly not interested. So to me, everything has the potential to speak, to inspire, to guide us from those regions that we may say are non-physical, and yet have a physical appearance. Nicole is saying, that explains my feelings the last 4 years, the crazy ride of doing. Now I'm in the lull, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with it. Exactly. To rush headlong into the next is sometimes what's required, and at other times we're asked to be in the lull. Here's the reason I think that that's really important for you to share. When we, like you did, you got a degree. In fact, I believe you got 2 degrees from university. So whether we're getting a degree at university or divine guidance has led us on another journey of sorts. I was in Decatur. Nikki is ramping up her offerings at the Heartful Art Studio. Right? Katie is shining her light there at the U.S. Postal Service. Thank you for doing that, Katie. Jocelyn is down south, right? Anchoring family, being matriarch. Marianne Malika recently kind of sort of retired. She has an astounding gift of photography and videography, being a bridge between the rest of us and the silence and the peace of the beach. And at all times, I believe everyone here in the chat room follows the divine guidance that they are given to bring them to. But here's the thing. When we follow divine guidance, we are never, ever the same. I believe that's part of the lull. To figure out, to come to understand, sometimes to come to terms with the fact that we are not the same. We may not be looking at life the same. We may not be looking at ourselves the same. Our beliefs the same. And yet, how many times do we, in the course of coming to understand the divine guidance we've been given or are being given, do we really contemplate change? The change. More change. Marianne is sitting on the beach right now as she's listening. Exactly. Who am I now? And when we ask the question, who am I now, that also includes, who am I now in relation to others? And who are others in relation now to me? Because of the divine guidance I have received and followed. I want to say something about divine guidance as well. Divine guidance is loving. Sometimes it's tough love, right? But the voice of the divine is always loving. It's always loving. It can be challenging when it asks us to step out of our comfort zone, but it is loving. It says, put those cigarettes down, stop smoking now, right? It's not always pleasant the way the universe or divine guidance can tell us about our bad habits. Dana, put away that bag of potato chips. You remember what Sue Madewell said to you? Oh, but I love potato chips. Yeah, but remember what she talked to you about? Divine guidance isn't always what we want to hear, but it's often what we need to hear. Our ancestors speak to us, those elevated ancestors. Those are who we should be speaking to. Not just all of our relatives who have passed. They're still working on their path, by the way. But our elevated ancestors, those that have a seat in the ancestral realm. They guide us from hundreds, sometimes thousands of years back. Sometimes right to the point of the beginning of all things. Our guardian angels, the voices of divine, they speak to us. Our relatives who have passed, they also speak to us in our dreams and in our quiet times. Totem animals, Mother Nature speaks to us. Sometimes the voice of the divine cracks us open. Sometimes sitting at the beach, sitting under a tree, looking at a newborn baby or a puppy or a piece of art, can crack us wide open. Sometimes divine guidance leaves us vulnerable. It opens us to change. It leaves us vulnerable to dealing with feelings of abandonment, of woulda, coulda, shouldas. That's what vulnerability does, I believe. It opens us up to really having to look at. And divine guidance and the journey that it sometimes leads us on does just that. It leaves us vulnerable to look at our belief systems, our prejudices, our ignorance. Sometimes our being pompous, right? Divine guidance can really be very humbling because it cracks us open. It reaches in and says it's time for a change. Sometimes divine guidance, yes, it can be simple. Divine guidance can say, go to the next row, you're going to find a parking spot. You're not going to find one here. One more over and you're going to get that parking spot, Dana. I love that kind of divine guidance. I call those my parking angels. Dana, don't go over there. You're going to regret that you did. Yes, that's divine guidance. But I'm talking about divine guidance that says, get ready. Prepare yourself. Jocelyn is saying, I'm with you on this, Denise. It sure is an eye-opener. Absolutely, Jocelyn. I couldn't agree with you more. Marianne is saying, I've been feeling quite guilty about being in a lull. This message couldn't have come at a more perfect time. Good. You know, the lull is necessary. Here in the West, I believe, we speed through everything. We speed through birth. We speed through death. And I believe we have a compulsion to speed through everything in between. And oftentimes I believe it's because as long as we're doing, we're not listening. We're not listening to the voice of our own wisdom, of our soul, of the Creator, of angels, all that is here to guide us. You know, we came here to do something, and not everybody is going to be on a great big grand center stage. Not all of us are destined to do that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm happy for it. I have a lot of stage fright. But this human journey, as I often say, is not for the faint of heart. It is for the strong of heart. It's for the adventurous, for the seeker, for the light bringer, to the soul who wishes to grow, having experienced the muck and the mire, and the passion and the joy. And sun rises and sun sets. All of them, literal and metaphorical. Sun rises and sun sets. And for every sunrise and every sunset, we are not alone. At the very least of everything, we have our own voice, that inner voice. Sometimes we have to teach that or reteach that inner voice how to talk to us in a kind way. Right? The voice sometimes of the mind can get a little bit owly. And we have to set some boundaries with it. Mind, if you're going to talk to me like that. Brain, if you're going to talk to me like that, you're not going to be allowed to do so any longer. Here is what I will now accept in self-talk. Setting boundaries. Hey, how are you, New Joy? Hey, Angie, speeding through the day. Absolutely. It can be hard to just take a moment. Oftentimes, really, let's just keep it real. We find ourselves doing that when we go to the bathroom, right? We have a 2-minute break. We can sit right there or stand right there, guys, and think, oh my God, I got a break for 30 seconds or a minute or 2 or 5 or whatever. And you're right, Nicole, the lull is often harder than the doing. Yes. Sometimes we just think. Sometimes we have to have a conversation with the noodle between our ears. Ask it to quiet itself. I call mine the editor. The editor loves to talk. Blah, blah, blah. So I have to tell my editor to go away. That's the voice of my brain. Go away. That's the grace of having a left brain stroke. The left brain stroke, right, kind of takes care of one part of the editor, the analytical editor. That's the grace. That's finding the divine in circumstance. Sometimes divine guidance leads us, I believe, through illness. Or I should say, not leads us through, it assists us through illness, disease. It's that voice that says, Dana, things could be a lot worse. Right? We all hear that. It could be a lot worse. Well, when we're in our own circumstance, that's not what we want to hear. We want to hear an answer to, but why is this happening to me? I don't care about my circumstances, could be worse. Why am I going through this? That's what I want to know. Any of you do that? I do. What is this about? Well, sometimes the answer that we receive, maybe it kind of makes us bristle a little bit, or maybe it makes us go, aha. Oh, that's why. It has the potential to do what? Well, I never thought of that before. Well, when you get through this, here's who you'll be. Here's the gift, if you choose to receive it. Right? That's divine guidance. Helps us to see the good things. Although it's not ignorance, because divine guidance also says, look out, stop. Stop where you are. Don't entertain that thought. Don't entertain that person. Do not entertain that circumstance. Stop. And how do we know which voice or which thought or which feeling or intuition that we should follow? How do we know that? How do we know when a moo cow is just a moo cow? And how do we know when the moo cow is showing us something divine? Well, our heart knows. Our heart knows. But when was the last time that any of us spent a moment having a conversation, a good conversation, with our heart? Well, it can be your physical heart. It can be your energetic heart. When was the last time any of us had a heart-to-heart with our heart? Because our heart knows a lot of stuff. And we're always trying to balance that against what the brain thinks it knows about everything, including matters of the heart. If we can pass divine guidance that we receive through the chambers of our heart, because sometimes the guidance we're given isn't easy. It can be tough. It can be heart-rending. And at the same time, it can be joyful, magnificent, adventurous. Holy cow, here I go. If we can pass that information, that thought, that feeling through the chambers of our heart, and if we know our heart well enough, if we've done enough of our own work in healing and coming to terms with who we are, the experiences that we've had that made us who we are, by the way, we can take that information and trust it if it passes through the corridors of our heart. Receiving divine guidance doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairosmesian, clairgustient, right? Any of the clairs doesn't mean that. What it means is that you have to have a really good relationship with your heart. That temple that resides within each and every one of us, that is the dwelling place of the divine, that heart. That heart. I call it the temple within. It's that heart. When we have an honest, loving relationship with that, divine guidance becomes much more clear. So how do we begin that? How do we begin that practice? Well, you know what? It's really easy. We can all just take a moment right now, right, to take a deep breath and go to that place. You know where your temple is, your inner temple. You know where your divine heart lies within your body, where it resides. Take a moment just to feel that. For some, it's right there in the middle of their chest. For some, it's more up toward the throat. It can be in many places. It can also feel as though it's in your gut. But take a moment, right? Gabriel and Dominic are playing with one another as we're doing this. Where do you feel your inner temple? Take a moment to breathe some love light into that place. And exhale. And take another moment to breathe that love light into that space, your inner temple. And perhaps upon that breath say, I love you. Only light and love dwell here. And exhale. And feel how the temple seems to expand. Just in that brief moment of recognition. Breathing into that inner sanctum where the spirit of all love and all creation dwells within you, informing it. I see you. I know you. You are me and I am you. And only light, love, and joy dwell here. Only light, love, joy, and infinite grace and wisdom dwell here. Speak to your heart chamber. Become familiar with it. And when you recognize that you are being divinely inspired or divinely guided, take that through the corridors of your inner temple. Be with it. When you have followed divine guidance and you've had the experience that it's set out before you, and you're in the lull, take opportunities, many of them, to visit this place to be with it, to allow that what's next to unfold, not to be forced, but to be unfolded, not on time, but in time, in the time that is perfect for your journey, not the expectations of others, right? And what is your definition of lazy? Right? Some people are lazy, and so their definition of lazy is different than others that are just not used to taking time for themselves. There's a big difference. In that lull, that space of the lull, it's not called lazy, it's called lull, where we consider how we have changed, who we're becoming, and how all of that changes the landscape within us and around us. It opens us up to surprises, to moments of grace that are just waiting for us to not be rushing headlong into the next, but waiting to present itself in the form of opportunities, new friendships, new understandings, releasing what is no longer nourishing, welcoming sustenance. And everyone likes to hear thank you. So when you receive some divine guidance, regardless of who it's coming from, but always loving, nurturing divine guidance, say thank you. I hear you, I feel you, I know you. Thank you. Let's sit with that for a moment. And when it's complete, let's sit with that a little bit longer and move forward informed, walking in grace, walking in understanding that all things change, including us. We came here to grow. We came here to shine. Sometimes we came here to help others do the same, just by being who we are, not forcing, just being. With that, everyone, thank you for being who you are, and have a magnificent day. Take a moment each day to just revel in the grace that resides within you. That is the greatest source of divine inspiration and divine guidance. Blessings be.